Hey there, my name is Jason Bradley. You may recognize my voice from such places as the Community Solutions Podcast, which, by the way, you're listening to now. Before we begin, can I bend your ear for just a moment? We want to bring you the very best in quality and information each week. You can help us achieve that level of greatness. If you sell something, want to announce something, or try to convince others to vote for you, consider advertising on the Community Solutions Podcast. You can email us at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com, and we'd love to help you tell everyone about what you do. Once again, that's commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. Let us be your solution to increased sales. We thank you ahead of time for your consideration. Okay, enough yammering. On with the show. Defending the land of the ice and snow from the monsters of the Midway, it is the Community Solutions Podcast. And here we are on location, recording from an undisclosed bunker. No, really, we are podcasting from a pod today. And with me is Andrew Richter.
It's our own lair.
Yes.
Yes.
This is like the bat lair or something like that. Yes. It's our own island.
The things we do to bring good podcasting to the world are incredible.
Absolutely. So if you hear any noises in the background, we are on location, and this is the way we do it. This is how we see Minnesota and are able to bring you the latest and greatest news from everywhere. And we've had some exciting podcasts lately, haven't we?
We are good, yes. No question about it. I mean, everything from current issues to interviews to podcasts generally speaking about certain subjects. I mean, we've covered a lot of things so far, and if you've missed them, you check out our YouTube channel and get back and get caught up is what you should be doing.
Absolutely. There's some important stuff.
Yeah, you sit on that sofa with the spring sticking out of it and hit play.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't need to watch the latest Bachelorette or whatever is on. It's on demand anyway, so you can catch up later. This is your life. It's important stuff. So, how are you doing, Andrew?
Hi. Couldn't be better.
Well, good.
Believe it or not.
You got a bunch of stuff on your plate right now. It's kind of busy.
I do, but if I wasn't going 100 miles an hour, I just wouldn't be myself.
Well, that's true.
It's always been that way.
It's hard to have a sofa with a spring sticking out of it when you don't ever sit down. So.
Yeah, especially a rented one.
Oh, we're going to change gears a little bit. We seem to do that, though. We never bring you the same thing twice, although you hear a lot of the same things over and over, because it proves our point that none of this is new. People are doing the same things everywhere. And we do this so that you understand that we recognize what the battle is, and we're able to give you plans to be able to implement solutions to change things, to increase liberty, to deregulize, to cut budgets, to make government smaller, to make your daily life more free.
Deregulize? I've never heard that word in my life.
I made it up, okay. Probably.
Yeah, that's probably why.
Probably.
I'm going to have to come up with a word of my own by the end of... I was told ain't a word, so I guess I can't come up with that.
All right. Well, today we're going to change gears a little bit and talk about education. That's something we don't talk about a lot. And the reason for it is this. Yes, all things should be local. We believe that local government is best suited at the local. Most power should be local. And we usually like to start with city council and things like that because it's a smaller area for the most part. I mean, once you get into county commissions and once you get into school boards, you end up dealing with a larger area, and it is a lot harder for someone to mount a campaign to win. Not impossible, not by any stretch of the imagination, and there are ways to do that, and that's something we'll probably talk about in a later podcast. But today we want to talk about school choice, and so that's something that's kind of neutral, doesn't, it'll whet your appetite for the education end of things, and it is important. We do need people to run for city council, but we also need people to run for school boards and county commissions because of the changes and the money that are handled by those groups. So we don't want to ignore them.
No, we don't. And if you look at, you talk about budgets and amount of money spent, your local school district is spending a ton.
And it seems like more all the time.
Yeah, and if you look at our state biennium budget, how much of that is going to education, quote unquote. You look at the federal government, there's what we call the money merry-go-round. There's money all over the place, quote, going to education. Yet, strangely, education doesn't seem to be going anywhere in this country. And it's kind of, I don't understand what it's going to take to get people to sort of open their minds up to maybe this archaic system that we have, this public. So look, I'm going to do a lot of I don't want to say negative talk about public schools, because I went to a public school.
As did I.
Yeah, and then your kids do too. And I mean, I learned well. The public schools can teach.
I learned good.
That ain't well. But, the public schools, they can't be everything to everybody. And I think over time, what they've morphed into is something foreign to what they were originally concepted to do.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, the question is, we've got this, I think the system at some point is going to collapse under its own weight. What do we do? How do we pick up the pieces from that?
That's a great question. And, backing up, I mean, when you look at the origins of public education, I mean, there was a long time in America where it was only private education. And that's the way it is in a lot of other countries. Not so much your first world countries and second world countries, but a lot of your third world countries. When I was in Haiti after the earthquake in 2010, I was surprised to find out that only the kids that could go to private school were the ones that were getting an education.
Right, and you think about how schools started. How did the one-room schoolhouse start? It was local people who got together and said, this is important. They didn't have a licensed teacher.
No.
They didn't go to the state and ask for funding for early childhood.
Right.
And that's not how they began. But my question is, how have we morphed into what we have today? Where you have a workforce that holds a lot of power, especially in this state. And I'm not just talking about Education Minnesota. I'm talking about AFSCME and SEIU and all the unions that are involved. You've got at least one political party beholden to them and another afraid to stand up for what they believe in. You've got the state government, the federal government, everybody, school boards associated, all telling everybody what to do. And I mean, and schools have become, I would argue, they become daycare centers.
Yep.
They've become a place where kids go eat.
Yep.
They've become a place where they want your kid, in the system, almost grabbed from the womb and left there until you graduate college.
I would also argue that it has become a place to brainwash in a certain ideology, and where it can take kids who are more unsure of themselves, who are who don't fit in maybe, and instead of trying to teach them how to take their individuality and build upon that in a healthy way, they figure out ways for them to build upon it in a negative way by pushing ideologies.
And, a place to learn English.
Yeah.
They've become that. Now, the public schools will sit there and complain that those are mandates on them.
Right.
At the same time, they've advocated for some of these mandates.
They have.
They've advocated for English as a second language funding, and then they complain about it when they don't get it. Wait a minute. You complain about having to teach kids English, but you advocated for the fundings. Which is it?
Right. And you take a look at special education and how the budget for special education, the money that comes in from special education, has done nothing but grow year after year after year.
Well, and part of it's how they classify kids as special
it is
today.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole new thing. I mean, how many kids do you remember growing up, with autism, at Cooper when you graduated?
Very few.
I can remember from Proctor High School one maybe two people that had autism.
They may have had something other than that, but
right, it was classified differently,
yeah,
or
a handful. I'd say.
I think,
when I graduated from Cooper, it was like a class of 600.
Right, and
it was a bigger school then than it is now.
Right, and I think we had 135 or something like that. But like the lower levels on the autism spectrum were not. There was nothing for them at that time. And so, again, I'm not speaking anything bad against autism, but EBD is another one that has become a huge boon as far as attention deficit disorder, the types of medications
ADHD.
that are given for that. Some of it is like, especially when you get into the inner city, when you have a lot of foster kids and you have people going through the system, that there's a lot of these psychotropic drugs, and so there's these different classifications.
Which doesn't do anything for the kid, but get them to sit down and shut up. It doesn't cure anything.
Yeah.
It manages it.
And I would say, in a lot of times, it masks the individual talents that a child has.
I know. You can't... How is somebody supposed to grow and be all they can be if they're medicated 24/7?
You turn them into a zombie, and it doesn't do them any good.
And it has changed. It's also part of something that's been called mainstreaming.
Right.
50 years ago, a severely... I guess I'll be politically correct, challenged person didn't go to a regular high school.
No.
A person who was a juvenile delinquent wasn't shoved in a classroom. They went to what was called reform school back then, where they smacked you with, the nuns smacked him, and that did happen. And what we've done today is everybody, in the government's mind, if everybody's treated lousy, then it's equal. So we all throw everybody in a pot, and are we surprised at the results we're getting?
Right.
I mean, if I threw 200 people into a room with, somebody who's mentally challenged, somebody who doesn't know English, somebody who does, but of this, what am I going to get? I'm going to get chaos.
Yeah.
So why are we shocked that it's happening? Well, I guess we're not shocked.
No, but you and I aren't shocked.
I'm not shocked.
But it seems like the school districts are shocked. It's like,
and it seems also like they're clueless on what to do. That's the part that worries me.
Right.
Is these educrats, other than saying more money, lower class size, have nothing to offer in the way of change.
And have the class sizes really shrunk that much? I mean, we're looking at, every few years, we need $10 million in a referendum because the kids need it. We need $10 million in a referendum because the kids need it. But yet the scores don't improve. The achievement gap, if there is such a thing, doesn't improve. We're trying to fix a gaping wound with a Band-Aid, and it's not the right way.
What it is they're trying to just keep the system going,
right?
Whether it's working or not. It's kind of like trying to keep your old car running for another 5,000 miles. Not instead of replacing the car or rebuilding the engine, we're just gonna, we're gonna shine it up for 6 months and get it to work. I mean, here's the thing. So the question comes, okay, what would we do? Minnesota's Constitution calls for a system of uniform schools. That's literally the wording. It doesn't say it has to look the way it does.
No.
Okay, so what would we do to fix this? What is... I'm gonna say a few things first and maybe contradict myself a little bit. Number one, there's no easy answer to that question. Because we have an epidemic in this country of broken families.
Yeah.
We have an epidemic of people who, I'm just going to say it, think it's the school's job to do this and this and this, and not theirs. Let me tell you something. If somebody would have tried to put me on free and reduced lunch as a kid, my mom and dad would have gone, they considered that welfare. Now, I know we don't, they considered it food stamps. Now, I consider it a variation of that.
Right.
It's not food stamps the way we know it, but it is. I mean, we have people today, like I said, they're dependent on the schools for a daycare, for food, for whatever else. And that mentality is the first thing that has to change.
Right.
The mentality, the power to the individual is the first thing that needs to be realized. That just because we've had this system for 70 years doesn't mean it needs to continue for another 70.
Right.
We can change what's going on here, but it's going to take a change between the ears. That's the first change that has to happen. The attitude that the power needs to go out of the bureaucrats and into the hand of individuals. That's the first thing that needs to happen.
Yes.
And if that doesn't happen, nothing else we talk about is going to work.
Absolutely. And that's true, whether it's budgeting or curriculum or disciplinary measures or the way the school is structured. All of it, needs to be looked at from an individual point of view.
And let me just say this. Let me throw out a general question.
Okay.
If the goal of going to school is to get an edge, remember, you're supposed to get the tools to make you a successful adult.
Right.
And it's all about opportunity. Education, another thing where the mindset has to change is education's become an entitlement in this country.
Right.
Well, it's anything from an entitlement. In education, something you go earn. You earn it. You don't walk up to a kid and say, well, here you go, here's an education. No, you got to work for it. And some kids have to work harder. Some kids are more gifted in this subject, or they're more artistic, or they're more... I know for me as a kid, math and history and writing were things I was good at. And there were subjects like, science or something that I wasn't as good at. Creative, I have no right side of my brain whatsoever. I liked science if math was involved. I liked chemistry.
Yeah.
But, you're going to run into that.
Right, and I was kind of the opposite. I wasn't very good at math, but your creative things and your reading and stuff, I'm almost all right, brain. Well, not entirely, but I agree with what you're saying, and now I've heard this before, and I would agree with it, that it used to be that schools used to teach you how to think, and how, not what to think, but how to think, and how to do math, how to read, how to analyze, how to research. And now really it's just, we're training you to go to college. And once you get into a university, we're training you to find a job. And we're losing out on so much entrepreneurial spirit in this country, and people that invent and do great things because they're trained to go sit in a cubicle for 40 hours a week.
I would also say, one of the other ways to go with this is it's why I believe so much in vouchers to going to private schools. Because if everybody had a voucher, and we'll explain what a voucher is in a minute, because the word's been bad-mouthed, and I think most people don't understand what that means. And I'm not saying people are stupid. I just think the propaganda against it has been so strong.
Right.
If you had a setting where I could take a voucher and you could open up Jason's School of Music. Okay, so the kids who have that ability get harnessed, they can maximize their talent. You had my School of American History or baseball history or whatever, and you had Bob's School of Engineering and Ann's School of Hairdressing. Wouldn't that harness a kid's greatest talent? And they could go and I'm not saying that's the only thing they teach. I'm saying that's the emphasis. And kind of like a charter school is a lot of them become magnets, but that's not the only thing they teach.
Right.
Same thing here. And you can maximize that talent. Instead of taking history 1 hour a day and taking 5 classes you don't like and you aren't doing very well at.
Right.
Let's if you chose to, your choice.
Right.
Those dollars follow the child to that school. Now, in the setting we have now, that can never happen because we have the one-size-fits-all everybody takes tests on math and English, and one test determines everything, and that's the attitude.
Well, and even with electives, I mean, I'm not saying it's this way at every school, but I'm going to tell you, like at Cooper, with and this is a school in the Robbinsdale 281 district. For those of you who don't know,
school I graduated from.
Yep, that's where my kids, 2 of them, have gone so far. That you don't even get to choose your electives.
So then how are they electives?
They're not. It's kind of like luck of the draw.
So it's a lottery.
You might be my son who has an interest in entrepreneurship, but he might sign up for the entrepreneurship elective and get drafting or life sciences. You can cook a brownie. That's fantastic. What? Yeah, and it is terrible. You know,
well, and I'll tell you something too. You know what's been on the chopping block, and it's partly because of policies from the state and federal government, has been those extra classes, foreign languages. How many kids, don't study another language?
Right.
I mean, they might be bilingual because they were born somewhere else,
right.
But that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, I took Spanish all the way from 8th grade to the day I graduated, I believe. Or maybe I didn't take it my senior year, but I know I took it for quite a while. And shop classes. I remember I took shop class when I went to Hosterman Junior High. We took shop classes. I took them again my first or second year at Cooper. I'm trying to remember. I'm getting them mixed up as to what, but art classes and music classes and Phi Ed classes. I mean, kids need to run off some steam. They need to get exercise. And so many of these have been on the chopping block because people are teaching toward a test now.
Right.
They're teaching toward, like you said, getting that into college. And people aren't being all they can be. But I still don't see how you can reform that within the system. I don't see how that can happen.
No, the system is broken, and I mean, I'm not advocating let's burn it down. That's not my MO, but I think we do need to take a look at a free market enterprise system of education, and like you said, whether that is setting up different schools with different focuses, or it is by allowing more freedom within the school. I want to shy away from putting kids on tracks because a child decides he's not as interested in shop as he thought and wants to go.
There's way too much of that too. And when I talked about Bob's School of Engineering, I meant when a kid was like 16,
right,
and not when they were 6,
right?
Because it's really scary out there what they're trying to do.
Oh, absolutely.
There is one group, and I'm hesitant to quote this because I forget the name, but it's the Common Core people,
right?
And Bill Gates is one of their largest funders. And what he wants to do is take a picture of a kid's brain at 5 or 6 years old and then send them on a track based on that.
Right.
I mean, and they use all the terms that the soccer moms just love.
Oh, yeah.
College readiness, world's greatest workforce.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. I mean, kids need to learn the basics at a young age. But by the time, they're 15, 16, 17, they got to be thinking about the future. And chances are, by that age, you know what they're good at.
Yeah.
You know what they're not good at.
Yeah.
They've gotten the basic education on everything.
Yeah.
So now it's time to maximize their strengths.
Right. Whereas under this other system, it's like, oh, you're really smart. Let's put you on a leadership track. Your scores aren't so good. Guess what? We're going to put you in the manual labor track, and that is not the way that things are. There are plenty of very smart people that work in manual labor.
Of course. I
mean, to be able to build cabinets with excellence, or
the math skills you have to have.
Absolutely.
It's just a different kind of talent. That's all.
It is. People's brains think differently.
Right. And the whole thing about creating all these different schools is, again, it's all based on supply and demand. The accountability takes care of itself. If I open up Andrew's School of History and I don't do a good job, guess what? People don't come to my school.
Right.
Public schools know that whether they do a good job or not, and I'm not saying it's all their fault. I mean,
right.
There are some things that are put upon them, but they're getting money
Yeah.
They do a good job. Most of the kids will be there next year, whether they're learning or not.
Right.
And in the private setting, that would never work that way. It would go, wait a minute, time out. My kid's not learning here, or something of that nature. This is not a good school. Again, whatever your idea is of good or bad, it'd be based on an individual. That would take care of its own accountability.
Yeah, and let me tell you, I mean, I know some of you out there who disagree with us on everything, we hear from you, are saying, what do you guys know about teaching? You guys never stepped foot in a classroom after leaving and graduating. I used to teach in the public schools, believe it or not. So I do know what I'm talking about here. And I know Andrew and I have talked about education before. We've studied what's going on in education at the local levels. And let me tell you, they do this kind of stuff. I taught in a school where I had kids not turn in homework all grading period, not turned in one piece of work. And I failed those kids. And I had the principal come back to me and say, you can't fail this many kids. You need to figure out a different way to do this.
Social promotion.
Exactly. So what do? I give them D- and they pass and they go on to the next grade.
There's somebody else's
ridiculous.
problem.
Yeah.
They're just somebody else's problem, man.
But it's the same way with a lot of the bad staff and bad administration. They get shipped around from school to school when they don't work out, and they become somebody else's problem.
It's like a pedophile in the church. They go somewhere else. I mean,
or in the school. I mean, in New York and in other places, they have rooms where some of these people sit and get paid because they can't be in the classroom.
So let me ask this question. And look, I'm not a teacher, but I don't think I need a license to be able to teach somebody something. I mean, I can help somebody with their math. Let me just say this. My dad was a truck driver. He was a blue-collar guy.
Right.
But let me tell you, he wasn't a stupid guy.
No.
He could help me with my homework, and in some cases, he taught it better than people I was around. My mom was a smart lady. She decided to be a homemaker when my sister and I she went back to work when we were teenagers, but they weren't stupid people. The idea that you have to be some professional with some sheet of paper from a government school that you owe $100,000 to be able to teach anybody anything is BS. I'm sorry, but it is. And I don't mean to... I'm not disrespecting teachers when I say that, because as individuals, I have a lot of respect for teachers.
They have a very hard job.
They do. I would say their representation has not made it much better.
No.
And they've brainwashed a lot of the people who work there. And I feel bad for them, because you just can't get through to their heads. But as individuals, I respect what they do. Mm-hmm. And so, I spent more time at school than I spent around my parents sometimes when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It's true. And they have a lot of influence. Mm-hmm. I remember the good teachers I had at Cooper and at Hosterman, and I do. And I remember the ones where, I spent the time throwing spitballs and gum across the room or whatever. I mean, that's just the way it is. And sometimes the teacher's like a coach. Sometimes they're hard on you, but later in life you sort of respect that and that kind of thing. But ultimately, the reason I say that is, what are the forces that are... Why haven't we gone to a system that we're talking about? What are the forces that are... And it's more than one.
Right.
But what... Two questions. Why haven't we gone to more of a market-based education choice? And what's it going to take for that to happen? I mean, what are the forces stopping it?
Well, schools are funded by tax dollars, and as long as there is a Department of Education that is giving, in air quotes, free money out to schools to do A, B, C, and D, and they're going to say, oh, we need money, let's go do A, B, C, and D so we can get the free money, that is a huge problem. And that, I think, is one of the biggest problems. We've heard certain people that they haven't gotten very far, but that I want to get rid of the Department of Education, I think that's something worth looking at least looking at how to do it differently, where taxes are not just given to government schools. Tax money is not just given to government schools. Because, I don't want to go, I don't think, to a place where it's up to you to scrape together enough money to get an education. One of the best things about this country is that everybody has the opportunity to get an education.
But you just said the key word, the opportunity.
Right.
And I agree that everybody, if we go back to a system where half the people can get it and half the people can't, we're just, the haves and have-nots is just going to grow wider.
And like I said, I mean, that's the way it was when I was in Haiti. And
that's what it was like in this country 150 years ago.
Right. Although the people who did get an education 150 years ago, I mean, George Washington was out exploring and surveying land, and at what age? Yeah, he was 8 or 11?
He was young.
He was young, and he was smart enough to do this. The books that Thomas Jefferson would read, and how
they didn't have TV and cell phones, and
that stuff kind of makes us dumber.
And it just wastes time. I mean, that's the other thing too. You're right, though, in a sense. And here's my other thing here with that. Because of that kind of stuff, like I said before, I respect teachers. I respect what they do. You talked about getting rid of the Department of Education. Explain to me a question.
Okay.
Why do we have a federal Department of Education? I mean, why is the federal government... let me throw this out at you.
Yeah.
Taking taxes out of my paycheck, sending it to Washington, then sending that to Utah with strings attached. Now, you tell me, how in the world is that efficient? How is that... and how is that helping anybody?
Oh, before they take that, they take their cut to pay all the administrators that work in their department.
Guaranteed pensions, and studies, and consultants. Yeah.
Yep. And they're not allowed to quote unquote come up with curriculum. They do. They come up with standards and things to teach to.
Yeah, whether that's Common Core, No Child Left Behind.
And some would argue that Common Core is a curriculum that
I don't think
you teach to.
Yes, if you make testing requirements and hang money over people's heads, it's as good as making it a requirement.
Exactly.
Period. But I mean, who supports federal education? I mean, why? If even people who support the public school system and oppose what we're talking about complain about the federal government. So if everybody's mad at the federal government, if everybody doesn't like what's going on, why is it still there?
Because states' rights don't exist. We've allowed the federal government to dictate.
Why does Congress continue to fund it? Why does the president continue to sign it?
Great question.
Why doesn't the president not appoint a secretary? And I'm not directing this at Trump, because he's far from the first president to go through this. But why don't we just say, I'm not appointing a Secretary of Education? Why doesn't the House? Where's the House Freedom Caucus?
Exactly.
Why don't they say, no, we're going to filibuster this or whatever? It just seems like it's all talk, and then in the end, nothing really changes. So who's standing in the way of... And where's the honest debate, either? Where's the honest discussion? We've had a Department of Energy in this country that hasn't done a damn thing since 3 Mile Island. I mean, where is the... but seriously.
Yeah.
Why hasn't... What are the forces that are stopping... I mean, do we have states that won't say no to the money? Do we have, districts getting... federal funding is very disproportionate, too.
Right.
Based on Title I and that kind of stuff. I mean, is anybody standing up to the federal bully?
I mean, I really don't see it, and that's the thing. I mean, if we're looking at this constitutionally, I mean, the Department of Education should really only have say over what happens in the executive branch and enforcing things that are passed by Congress that have to do with education.
Right.
So, Congress...
They don't make law.
Right.
That's true.
Well, they're not supposed to.
Not supposed to.
So, Congress stopped passing laws about education because it's none of your business. It's not within your granted powers. Number two, when we get to the state level, again, you have a state Department of Education. You really don't have the ability to do anything outside of the same powers, but at the state level, you can't be dictating to local school boards how to run their school district. I mean, once laws are passed by the legislature, you get to enforce it. That's fantastic. Again, legislatures get out of the education business.
But I mean, like, where's the bill to get rid of the Department of Education federally? I mean,
there's not one.
I mean, I've heard over and over, and I shouldn't name names, but there's some of my favorite people, whether it's Mike Lee or Rand Paul or Ted Cruz or Justin Amash. I'll go on about it, but where's the committee hearing on what? It sounds great at a Tea Party meeting, but I'm not seeing any action, and I'm not seeing it here in Minnesota either.
No,
I'm hearing a lot of talk, and in the end, like I said, you have one party that is pretty much married to the system as it is.
Yes.
And there are Democrats who support reform, but they're all reform it within the system people.
Right.
And the Republicans who say one thing on the campaign trail and do something different when they're in charge.
Right.
So if neither party is willing to take this on, how are we ever going to make the most minute change? I mean, the fundamental change you and I are talking about is going to take a second American Revolution. I mean, it really
Let's hope not.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I don't see it coming, and I think again, we've already had a couple of generations of kids that I'm concerned about. And I mean, I am really worried that we have kids growing up on gadgets. We have kids, like you said, that aren't trained to think. They're not trained to question anything. And I'll tell you what I'm really worried about. What's going on in college campuses. College campuses are the most anti-free speech, anti-free thinking, anti-anything we just talked about.
Oh, yeah.
They completely are. They're a disgrace.
Yep. Here's the process. Here's how you do your job. Here's how you walk in to an employer, you get a job, and you keep a job. You don't stick your neck out. You don't stick your head above the sand. You just conform. And then that's what they're taught. But I tell you, looking at things at the state level, I mean, there is a lot of this that has to do with how much unions contribute to one of the parties. How little they contribute to the other one, but it has less to do with that than how much they're giving to this one party, and they want to stay in power, so they need the money to run the campaigns. It all comes down to politics.
They're the largest political contributors in the state.
And they're willing to put our future, our kids on the chopping block, on the altar, on the negotiation table, in order to be able to win elections, and that's sad.
That's beyond sad. And I'll tell you, it amazes me how the teachers' unions and the DFL use kids to trap kids.
Yeah.
I mean, they're basically make it sound like they're fighting for the little guy. They're trying to keep the little guy where the little guy is.
You're trying to create the little guy.
Right. They want... I mean, But I'll tell you what, I'm just as frustrated with the other side.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm just as frustrated with... I mean, we talked about vouchers earlier, and I want to explain just real quick how a voucher would work.
Okay.
You'd get a voucher, say it was, $5,000. And you can take that voucher as a parent, and you can go out and shop for the best education you can find.
Right.
Now, you're already paying for this. It's not new money. It's not new taxes. And believe me, educating a kid in public schools costs way more than $5,000.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm just throwing out a number. And you go around and you shop for the best education you can find. Whether that might be a public school.
Yep.
Might be a charter school. Might be a magnet school. Might be a religious school. It might be a private school. Whatever it is, some mix of the two. Your freedom is to go do that. Now, I ask you, what is wrong with that? What's wrong with, if you're in school to get a great education, why does it matter who's teaching you?
Yeah.
So what's, but when I hear vouchers talked about, by people on the right, they do the worst job of articulating what this means to people.
Right.
It's like, no, I am taking the 800-pound gorilla off your back. I am giving you this. This is your opportunity. This is your get-out-of-jail-free card. This is your opportunity card. Mm-hmm. And you go do the best you can. Now, you tell me what's wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that. If you live in North Minneapolis and you have the ability to and want to get your kid out to Wayzata, by all means, you should have the ability to do that.
Of course.
If you want to send your kid to Patrick Henry or North High School, you should be able to do that.
I'm sure people learn there, too.
Yeah, well, I don't know. But
somewhat.
You want to homeschool, you know? You want to put them in an apprenticeship program?
Right, and here's the thing about homeschooling. That's not economically feasible for a lot of people.
No.
But guess what? You got that money, homeschool a kid, I bet it becomes feasible for some people.
Absolutely it does.
So, I mean, right now, it's very, very limited. You could write off, like, I think it's like $1,000 worth of supplies or something, and they're still subject to the same testing that everybody else is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, how's somebody supposed to do it on that? But if you got a $8,000 voucher, I bet at least it'd be an option for more people.
Right.
So, I mean, that's what I'm about. I'm about creating freedom of choice. And let me tell you what choice is not. Choice is not choosing between public school A and public school B. That isn't choice.
Nope.
Because there are people who will say, oh, well, you can go to Meadow Lake or Forest.
Right.
Well, that's not school choice. That's you want vanilla here or vanilla there. That's ultimately what it is.
Right. So I would argue even with magnet schools, you're really not getting that choice. Yeah, there might be, you might get a little more fine arts, or you might get a little more athletics, or you might get a little more of this or that. But really, you're still running through the same public school system under the same guidelines and rules.
Right. I mean, you're still subject to everything. You're just learning something a little different than the other kids. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it's going to take to change this. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know where to start in some cases.
Right.
But I think I mean, as far as legislation, I don't know where to start. I think where it starts right now is in people's minds.
Yes.
And until people's minds change, we're going to stand here and you and I are going to spend the second half of our lives cutting checks to this.
Right.
So, you know, and you know what? As a taxpayer, I demand better results than I'm getting. Mm-hmm. Sorry, but I do.
Yeah.
And I don't want to hear your whiny crap about it in schools. They have some legitimate gripes, but ultimately, you take a whole lot of money. And I should be getting a better bang for my buck than I'm getting, period.
Exactly. You go anywhere else other than government, and if the expectations are not being met for what you pay for something, you take your business elsewhere.
Right. Or, you know, you find a different profession.
Right.
You know, I mean, you just do.
And please explain how it's fair for me to pay taxes to put my kids through school, but then if I choose to put them in private school, I choose to homeschool, I'm paying double.
Right. You absolutely are. Without a doubt. No question about it.
I don't understand that. If we're all paying into the system to have our children educated, then we should be able to do that in the way that we see fit as parents. But that's been removed from us too. So much of a parent's choice, a parent's ability to parent, a parent's ability to put their beliefs and their, the way that they would raise their child into their child has been removed from them. And it has gone...
Especially if there's any Christian faith being involved.
Right. And it has gone from not only just tacitly behind the scenes undermining the parents to the point where now even CPS gets called if they really don't like the way that a child is being raised.
And I'll tell you what, some of the power has been taken away from the teachers.
Absolutely.
Let's not forget that.
And when I taught...
Especially discipline.
Yeah.
It's been completely taken away.
I used to send kids out of the room all the time, and they would come back within 15 minutes, and there wasn't any... I didn't have special ed EAs that were in there. Half my kids were special ed, probably, where I taught in Minneapolis. And they would just send the kids back. There were no EAs, and they were all EBD kids, so emotionally, behaviorally disturbed. And... where was my help? I didn't have help, and
speaking of emotionally disturbed,
yes.
I'm so lucky I was born when I was. I had an IV of Ritalin hooked up to me as an elementary kid.
Yeah.
But you know what they just said at that time? I was a hyper boy.
Right.
I was a special boy. My mom and dad thought nothing of it.
Right.
Let them go run around the backyard afterward. I mean, I wasn't. Today, I'd be diagnosed with some disorder. I'd be thrown on a bunch of pills that don't solve anything. They just, like you said, they mask. They don't cure. They just make it so I will sit there and shut up. And in the end, I don't learn. I don't maximize myself. So, I mean, I am so glad. I've never been happy to be 40, but I'm happy to be 40 today. That I'm not in the schools right now. I mean,
wow.
it is happy. I'm happy I'm not.
That's good.
But, I got to say something as far as legislation goes. If I were in the legislature, which don't worry, I'll never be, I would introduce everything as a bill that I just talked about, and I'd get the debate going. We need to have this issue is so important, and it's not a spending contest.
No,
it's not that because I don't love the system doesn't mean I don't care about kids. It's I feel that we have a lot of talented people that aren't maximizing their talent,
right? And
all they need is that opportunity to do so.
Yep,
that's all they really need.
It is.
So ultimately, that's the way we have to go. But if we shy away from that, if we politically feel like we can't quote win on it, then how many kids have we lost just in that time in that school year?
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I mean, this stuff hurts minority kids, I think, far more than helps them.
It absolutely does, especially the black kids, because they're the ones most likely to be in a single-parent home. And I mean, all races have their issues with that, but they're more likely to be in poverty. That's just the truth. Same thing with Hispanic kids; they just are. Especially first-generation immigrants. They're likely to take whatever job they can find.
Right.
And their ticket out of that is the opportunity to get a great education. And if you put limits on that, if you tell them what school they have to go to and what curriculum they have to learn, and you put drugs in them, you're stunting their ability to get out of that. And you're right. The minority kids are getting creamed by this.
Yes.
And that's partly why things aren't changing. If you look at what education calls the achievement gap, nothing's moved on it nothing's moved on it since I was in school. That was 25 years ago.
Right.
Nothing's changed.
And how many more millions upon millions of dollars have they thrown at it?
Just in Minnesota alone, who the hell knows?
Yeah.
You probably I don't even want to know, because it's just going to make me angry. And it's just, I mean, you're right, though. The minority kids are getting killed by this. And they're, but what they're not understanding is, for a lot of them, the people they're voting for are holding them down.
Yeah. And
it's such an in for people on the right. I'm not trying to make this partisan. I'm just saying it's you want to get out of North Minneapolis, okay? And if you can't, say you can't get to another school, what are you supposed to do?
Right.
I mean, so where's that ticket out of there? And again, I think it's not to send the kid to Cooper or to Park Center. That's getting vanilla from a different place.
Yep.
It's sending them to a school that harnesses their abilities and can maximize their talent. And you know what? Kids will open up to it. If they feel like, if they see they're good at something, you don't know what will happen.
Exactly.
But if you talk down to them, you try to limit them, you try to push them on a track, that's probably when you're going to get a half-assed job. So I don't know. It's an issue that if I were dictator, I could solve it. I don't know if I don't know. It's going to take a lot of backbone to change things, and I'm not sure we have
short supply of that.
Yeah, there is. Everybody's a wet pretzel.
Yeah, I think maybe, if we started locally, it's a shock that I'm saying this, if we started locally and as school board members, you start pushing back against the state and federal thumbs on the back, and you.
Okay,
yeah.
I agree with that. At the same time, you can't go running to them for money all the
That
time.
was part two, yeah.
Yeah, because this is a problem, and I've seen this in 281. They whine and moan and gripe about mandates, yet they want every cent, every dollar, and it doesn't work that way.
Right.
No government ever works that way.
Exactly.
Nobody's going to cut you a blank check. So, if you don't want that stuff, stop running to them for every little problem.
Exactly.
But again, I think it's going to take both. And yes, you're right, but I think the power has been taken away from school boards so much that I think you almost have to start in St. Paul. Mm-hmm. I mean, it takes the people with the right mentality at the school district too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It takes the right folks.
Yeah.
But it also is going to take some legislation to change that. And I sometimes wonder why I should vote in a school board election.
Yeah, exactly.
What difference does it make, really? I mean, you can get some people with a different mentality who aren't endorsed by the unions and stuff. That's great. But ultimately, they have a limited amount of power to change things
right
at that level without some help from upstairs.
But I mean, that's why we've always advocated you start by running for school board, you start by running for city council, start at a local level with something you're passionate about, and then run for legislator, run for House, run for Senate, and then you
take that experience with you too.
Yes,
if you've been a school board member, and you want to change things, it's invaluable to take it to St. Paul.
Absolutely. I mean, why don't we have people like that other than people like Lyndon Carlson, who I've been a teacher for 125 years, and
I don't know how long
school board is a.
I don't know how long he was a teacher for, but he's getting a pension.
Oh boy, yeah,
it wasn't that long. I think he taught one semester on, one semester off.
Wow.
But union rules let him keep his pension.
It's a pretty sweet gig.
It's a real sweet gig. But I mean, he's been in the legislature since President Polk. So I mean, it's been a while. So
yeah. Well, I see you poking me in the side here. I guess we got to wrap it up. But you know what?
Start thinking. Again, start thinking. That's what we need to start thinking.
Yep. So take the opportunities to not only, think about what you're being taught, but what aren't they teaching you? What can you do to better yourself? What can you do to change the system? And that's really where it starts. It starts local, but then you take it from there and you make your impact felt. You live every day with an intention to make your desires come alive, because that's put in you for a reason, so that you go out there and you make the world a better place. So think about that and let us know what you decide. You can talk to us about what the great things that are happening in your community, the things that you're involved with. We want to hear about all that stuff. We want to hear about the news. We want to hear about the bad things too. Please email us, and you can do that at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. Keep in touch with our blog at commsolutionsmn.com, and for all of the most recent news, articles that we've written, some on policy, some on current events, some on John Budashevsky and the crazy stuff he does. So please make sure you keep coming back. Tell your friends about it, and let us know what's going on, because this really is a dialogue, and it's all of us working together that make the world a better place. So, Andrew, you got anything else for us today?
I never have anything else.
Well, I find that hard to believe. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. We appreciate you, and we cannot wait to talk with you again in a week from now. So be good or don't. It doesn't matter, but go out there and do something. All right. Bye. Get to